$10 million and a silent omega. I learned very early that silence could be louder than screams, especially when you are an omega carrying the heir of the most dangerous alpha in the city. The chandelier above us glittered like it was mocking me, crystal droplets catching the golden lights of the ballroom, reflecting wealth so obscene it felt unreal. Billionaires, politicians, crime lords dressed as philanthropists. This was the kind of place where men smiled while planning wars. And I stood in the middle of it all, my palm resting unconsciously on the gentle curve of my stomach. No one here knew I was pregnant. Except him. "I'll give you $10 million if you translate," he laughed. The voice belonged to Alessandro De Luca, alpha, billionaire, and undisputed mafia king of the Eastern Syndicate. His laughter rolled across the room, rich and careless, drawing attention like a predator drawing blood into water. My mate, my tormentor, my protector, my undoing. The men around him chuckled, swirling glasses of rare whiskey, eyes sharp with curiosity as they turned to me, to the shy omega interpreter Alessandro had brought tonight. They didn't know that beneath my plain black suit jacket, tailored carefully to hide my body, I was trembling, not from fear, but from instinct. Alpha presence pressed against my senses like a storm cloud. "I said," Alessandro continued, leaning back in his chair like a king bored of court, "translate what Mr. Volkov just said, or are you too shy to speak?" His silver-gray eyes flicked to me, amused, testing. He knew exactly what he was doing. I stepped forward slowly. Every movement felt heavy, not because of the pregnancy, though that came with its own quiet exhaustion, but because every alpha in the room turned toward me. Omegas weren't supposed to stand tall in rooms like this. We were meant to sit quietly, to be decorative, to obey, but I had never been good at obeying expectations. I met Alessandro's gaze. Then I spoke. "He said," I translated calmly, my voice soft but steady, "that your offer insults his intelligence, and that money were enough to buy loyalty, you wouldn't need to hide behind threats." The room went silent. Glasses froze mid-air. A few men coughed nervously. Alessandro didn't smile. Slowly, he leaned forward, forearms resting on his knees. The amusement drained from his expression, replaced with something sharp, dangerous. And then, unexpectedly, he laughed. A real laugh this time, deep, genuine. "Dio mio," he said. "You see why I keep him?" The tension broke, but not completely. Alessandro stood, towering over everyone without effort. When he reached me, his hand settled at the small of my back. Possessive, intimate. My breath caught. "You didn't have to humiliate them," he said, quietly for my ears alone. "They were humiliating themselves," I replied. A pause. Then his thumb pressed slightly into my spine, just enough to make my knees weak. "That mouth of yours will be the death of me. Or yours." The words went unspoken, heavy between us. I didn't belong in Alessandro De Luca's world. I was an omega raised in libraries and quiet apartments, trained to translate languages, not threats. I'd been hired as his personal interpreter a year ago, warned carefully about his temper, his ruthlessness, the rumors of bodies buried beneath concrete foundations. No one warned me he would be my mate. No one warned me how intoxicating an alpha like him could be. Our bond snapped into place violently, like fate itself grabbing me by the throat. Alessandro tried to deny it at first, furious at the idea that something as uncontrollable as destiny could claim him. But fate didn't care about his empire. Neither did the child growing inside me. Later that night, his penthouse was silent, except for the hum of the city far below. I stood by the window, staring out to lights that never slept, one hand pressed to the glass, the other resting protectively over my stomach. My suit jacket lay discarded on the couch, revealing the softer lines beneath my shirt. "You shouldn't be standing," Alessandro said from behind me. I didn't turn. You shouldn't command me. I heard his footsteps approach, slow, careful, as if he were stalking prey he had no intention of hurting. When his arms wrapped around me from behind, my breath hitched. He was warm, solid, real. You didn't eat, he murmured, his nose brushing the curve of my neck. You're carrying my child. That makes you my responsibility. I'm not an object you own. No, he said softly. You're the only thing I would burn the world for. The words sent a shiver through me. His hand slid to my stomach, palm spreading gently, reverently. The alpha in him surged, protective instinct thick in the air, wrapping around me like a shield. I felt it today, I whispered. The baby moved. His breath stuttered. Silence fell between us, heavy and fragile. Say it again, he said hoarsely. I felt our child. His forehead pressed against my shoulder. I felt the weight of him then, not the mafia king, not the billionaire, but a man standing on the edge of something that terrified him. I don't deserve this, he admitted quietly. I turned then, finally facing him. No, I agreed, but you'll protect us anyway. Our eyes locked. The kiss that followed wasn't rushed. It wasn't hungry. It was careful, reverent, his lips brushing mine like he was afraid I might disappear if he pressed too hard. When his mouth deepened, my hands curled into his suit jacket, grounding me in him. For a moment, there was no mafia, no danger. Only an alpha and an omega, bound by fate, standing at the beginning of something that would either save them or destroy them both. Pregnancy changes an omega's senses. They never warn you how sharply the world tilts, how every sound becomes louder, every emotion heavier, every scent layered with meaning. By the time I woke the next morning in Alessandro's penthouse, I already knew something was wrong. The air smelled like iron. Not fresh blood, dried, old, the kind that clung to men who had made difficult decisions before dawn. I lay still, one hand on my stomach, the other tangled in silk sheets that cost more than my entire childhood apartment. Alessandro was not beside me. The space where his heat should have been was cold. A distant voice carried through the halls, low, controlled, dangerously calm. I pushed myself upright, ignoring the alpha instinct roaring in my veins that told me to stay hidden, stay safe. I wrapped a robe around myself and stepped quietly toward the sound. The door to his private office was half open. Inside, Alessandro stood behind his desk, sleeves rolled up, veins visible along his forearms. 3 men knelt on the floor. One of them was bleeding. I asked a simple question, Alessandro said softly. Who told Volkov? Silence. The man in the center, Marco, one of Alessandro's longest-standing lieutenants, swallowed hard. No one, capo, we swear. Alessandro tilted his head, studying them like chess pieces already lost. Then explain, he said, how a Russian syndicate knows I have an omega important enough to threaten. My breath caught. Threaten. Marco's eyes flicked toward the door, toward me. The moment stretched thin and snapped. Alessandro moved faster than thought. His gun was already in his hand when he fired. The sound cracked through the room, sharp and final. I gasped. Marco collapsed sideways, blood blooming across the marble floor like a dark flower. The other 2 men screamed their apologies, their loyalty, their terror spilling uselessly. Alessandro didn't even look at them. Get out, he said coldly. If I ever hear your name spoken in connection with my family again, you won't die this quickly. They scrambled away, leaving behind silence and the scent of death. Only then did Alessandro turn to me. His expression shattered. Why are you here? He demanded, crossing the room in 3 strides. His hands cupped my face, checking, scanning. I told you to stay in the bedroom. I heard you, I said softly, and I smelled the blood. His jaw clenched. "You shouldn't see this. This is your world," I replied, "and by extension, mine." His hands trembled against my cheeks. "I will burn it all down before it touches you," he vowed. I reached up, pressing my palm over his racing heart. "You already have enemies," I whispered. "Killing them won't make me safer." "No," he agreed, "but fear will." He pulled me into his chest then, holding me tightly enough to make me feel small and impossibly protected. His scent wrapped around me, alpha dominance, and something softer beneath it, fear. For the first time, I realized the truth. Alessandro De Luca was terrified. That afternoon, he insisted I move, not just to another room, another building. "Safe house," he said, strapping his watch back on with a sharp snap. "Only 3 people know about it." 4, I corrected quietly. He met my gaze, exhaled. "Yes, 4. The drive took us out of the city, past steel and concrete into quiet hills where money hid behind trees and silence. The house was modern, glass and stone, perched like a secret overlooking the world. He barely let go of me the entire time. Inside, sunlight poured through wide windows. It should have felt peaceful. Instead, the tension followed us like a shadow. "You can't lock me away," I said eventually. "I'm not. I'm keeping you alive." I turned to face him. "You don't get to decide everything just because you're an alpha." His eyes darkened. "And you don't get to pretend the rules don't apply to you just because you're brave." The argument crackled between us, sharp and dangerous. "I'm not weak," I said, my voice shaking. "Being an alpha doesn't make me fragile." "No," he agreed slowly. "Being pregnant makes you precious." The word landed heavy. "I don't want to be precious. I want to be trusted." Silence stretched. Then Alessandro stepped closer. His hand slid to my jaw, tilting my face up. "You already own my trust," he said quietly. "What scares me is that you also own my restraint." His lips brushed mine, tentative, questioning. I kissed him back. The world narrowed to heat and breath and the slow, careful way he guided me backward until my legs hit the couch. He followed me down, bracing his weight carefully, as if every movement was calculated to protect. When his mouth trailed along my jaw, my throat, my collarbone, I closed my eyes, letting myself feel. His hands explored reverently, memorizing rather than taking. When the kiss deepened, it was hunger tempered by control, a promise rather than a claim. "I need you," I breathed. His forehead rested against mine. "And I need to keep you safe," he replied. The moment stretched, taut with everything unsaid. When he finally pulled back, his eyes burned with restraint. "Rest," he murmured. "I'll be close." He didn't leave the room. He took the chair by the bed and stayed there all night, gun within reach, watching over me and the life growing quietly between us. By morning, I understood something crucial. The danger wasn't coming. It was already here. And someone in Alessandro's empire had decided that to unalive an Omega and an unborn heir was worth the risk. I was awake when it happened. An Omega's body doesn't truly sleep when danger is near. The bond hummed beneath my skin, tight and urgent, a warning threading through my veins seconds before the glass shattered. Alessandro moved before the sound fully registered. He was already on me, already turning his body into a shield as the window behind the bed exploded inward. The crack of the rifle echoed through the hills, sharp and distant, followed by the scream of alarms. "Down," he ordered, voice absolute. We hit the floor together, his hand pressed firmly between my shoulders, his other already reaching for the gun beneath the mattress. Another shot struck the wall, spraying plaster across the room. My heart pounded, but not with panic, with clarity. "They know where we are," I said. Alessandro's jaw tightened. "Not anymore." His men flooded the house within seconds, boots pounding, voices clipped and lethal. Alessandro barked orders in Italian, sharp as knives. I stayed still, breathing slowly, one hand over my stomach. The baby kicked. Not hard, just once, as if reminding me that fear was no longer a luxury I could afford. They never found the shooter, which told Alessandro everything he needed to know. This wasn't Volkov, he said later, pacing the living room like a caged predator. This was someone who knows my roots, my patterns. Someone close, I finished. His eyes met mine. Yes. The admission tasted like poison. He stopped in front of me, crouching so we were eye level. His hands framed my knees, grounding, steady. I am moving you again, he said, this time off the board entirely. No. The word slipped out before I could soften it. His brows drew together. This isn't a debate. I'm not hiding anymore, I said quietly. The room went silent. You don't understand. I do, I interrupted, standing despite his hand on my leg. I understand that running makes me a target. I understand that men like you respect strength, not silence. His eyes darkened. And what are you suggesting? I stay, I said, at your side, publicly. Every alpha instinct in him rebelled. I could feel it, his dominance flaring, his fear clawing up behind it. They will use you against me. They already are. The truth settled between us, heavy and undeniable. I stepped closer, placing his hand back on my stomach. You want to protect your heir, I whispered. Then stop treating me like something that breaks. For a long moment, Alessandro said nothing. Then he exhaled slowly. You are impossible. I smiled faintly. You bonded me anyway. His lips twitched beside himself. The announcement shook the city. Alessandro De Luca, notorious alpha mafia billionaire, arrived at a high-profile charity gala with an omega at his side and did not let go of his hand once. Whispers spread like wildfire. Mate, omega, pregnant. I felt their eyes on me as we moved through the room. Judgment, curiosity, fear. But Alessandro's presence was a wall, unyielding, commanding. When someone dared to ask, he answered without hesitation. This is my partner, and anyone who disrespects him disrespects me. The bond thrummed, warm and fierce. Later, on the balcony overlooking the city, the noise faded. Night air brushed my skin, cool and grounding. You didn't have to do that, I said softly. Yes, I did. He stepped closer, his hands settling on my waist, thumbs brushing slow circles that made my breath hitch. I have ruled through fear my entire life, he murmured. Tonight I chose devotion. His forehead rested against mine. If they want to come for you, he continued, they will have to come through me. And if they come through you? I asked. His lips brushed mine, gentle, lingering. Then they will learn, he said, what happens when an alpha stops pretending he has something left to lose. The kiss deepened, not rushed, not desperate, a promise sealed in breath and warmth and restraint. When we finally pulled apart, his hand stayed over my heart. For the first time since the bond snapped into place, I believed him, not because he was powerful, but because he was choosing us. That night, we lay together fully clothed, my head on his chest, his arm wrapped around me like an oath. The city lights flickered below, unaware that a war had just been declared, not with bullets, but with loyalty. I closed my eyes, listening to his heartbeat, strong, steady. Hours, and somewhere in the dark, someone watched and planned their next move. The traitor revealed himself with flowers. They arrived just after noon, white lilies arranged with exquisite care, placed on the marble kitchen island like an offering. No card, no scent of threat, just beauty where none belonged. Alessandro froze the moment he saw them. Don't touch them, he said sharply. Too late. I had already felt it, the subtle wrongness in the air, the faint metallic tang beneath the floral sweetness. My omega instincts screamed. "They're laced," I whispered. "Not poison, a tracker." Alessandro's face went cold. Only one person knew this house. Only one man had access to his private supply routes, his safe house rotations, his blind spots. Luca. His cousin. His brother in everything but blood. "They were raised together," I said quietly, watching Alessandro process the truth. "He knows how you think." Alessandro's hands curled into fists. "I trusted him with my life. With yours." Silence pressed in, thick and suffocating. Then Alessandro lifted his head. "Get dressed," he said. "We're ending this." The warehouse smelled like oil and old secrets. Luca sat tied to a chair in the center of the room, blood streaking his temple, his expression still defiant. He looked up when we entered, and smiled. "So," he said lightly, "the Omega finally steps out of hiding." Alessandro moved like lightning, fist slamming into Luca's jaw hard enough to snap his head sideways. "You sold us to Volkov." Luca spat blood. "I protected the syndicate. You've gone soft." His gaze flicked to me. Disgust curled his lips. "And Omega made you weak." I stepped forward before Alessandro could stop me. "No," I said calmly. "You did." Luca laughed. "You think carrying his pup makes you untouchable?" I met his eyes without flinching. "I think," I replied, "that underestimating an Omega is the last mistake men like you ever make." Alessandro turned to me, surprise flickering across his face. Then pride. He turned back to Luca. "You betrayed me, but threatening my family was your death sentence." Luca's bravado finally cracked. "Alessandro, wait!" The gunshot echoed through the warehouse. Final. I didn't flinch. Alessandro stood there for a long moment, then turned to me. His expression was raw, stripped of pretense, heavy with consequence. "I chose you, over blood, over empire." I stepped into his arms, pressing my face against his chest. "You chose us," I corrected. His arms closed around me tightly. Outside, sirens wailed distantly. The city would feel this shift. That night, back in the penthouse, his true stronghold now, I stood on the balcony, watching dawn creep over the skyline. Alessandro joined me, wrapping a blanket around my shoulders. "It's over." I shook my head. "No, it's just begun." He smiled faintly. "You're right." He turned me toward him, hands warm and sure, thumbs brushing my jaw. The kiss that followed was slow, deep, grounding. No urgency, no fear, just certainty. When he rested his forehead against mine, his voice was steady. "I will raise our child in a world that fears them, not one that hunts them." I rested my hand over his heart. "Then we'll rule it together," I said. Below us, the city awoke, unaware that a new order had already taken shape. One built not just on power, but on devotion. The final move came quietly. That was how I knew it was real. No explosions, no warnings, no dramatic threats whispered through intermediaries, just a sudden stillness in the bond, like the world holding its breath. I woke before Alessandro did, heart racing, hand flying to my stomach. The baby shifted, restless. "Something's wrong," I whispered. Alessandro was awake instantly. That alone told me everything. An alpha like him didn't sleep lightly anymore. not with enemies still breathing. He pressed his forehead to mine. I feel it too. The city outside was too quiet. No traffic, no distant sirens. Even the lights seemed dimmer, like the skyline itself was bracing. "They're not coming for me," I said slowly. "Not directly." Alessandro's jaw tightened. "They're coming for control." "Yes," I breathed. "They want to force you to choose. Between power and family, between alpha instinct and bond, between the empire you built with blood and the life growing inside me." Alessandro straightened, something lethal settling into his posture. "Then they've already lost." The meeting was called within the hour. Every remaining syndicate head, every allied alpha who had benefited from Alessandro's rule and resented it. The location was neutral ground, chosen deliberately to strip him of home advantage. They expected him to come alone. He didn't. When we entered the hall together, the room shifted. I felt it, the ripple of surprise, the flare of suppressed Omega reactions, the low growls of threatened alphas. Alessandro's hand never left mine. His presence wrapped around me like armor, but he didn't push me behind him. He stood beside me, equal. "You've made yourself vulnerable," one of them said coolly. "This isn't the time for sentiment." Alessandro smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. "This," he said, voice carrying effortlessly, "is exactly the time." He turned slightly, his hand settling over my stomach openly. The room went deathly still. "This Omega is my mate, and the child they carry is my heir. Any threat against them is a declaration of war." A murmur rippled through the room. One alpha laughed nervously. "You'd dismantle everything you've built for an Omega?" Alessandro didn't answer. I did. "You misunderstand," I said softly. Every eye turned to me. "He didn't choose me instead of power. He chose me and became unstoppable." Silence. Not disbelief. Realization. Alessandro stepped forward then, voice dropping, dangerous and calm. "I am no longer negotiating. Those who stand with me will prosper. Those who move against my family will not survive long enough to regret it." No shouting, no gunfire, just certainty. One by one they bowed their heads, not to him alone, but to the bond we stood in together. The choice was made. That night the city felt different, not safer, honest. In the penthouse the lights were low, the world outside distant and unimportant. Alessandro knelt in front of me, actually knelt and pressed a reverent kiss to my stomach. "I have ruled men. I have commanded fear." He looked up at me, eyes stripped bare. "But this," he said, "is what I kneel for." Emotion clogged my throat. I threaded my fingers through his hair, grounding us both. "You were never weak. You were just waiting for something worth protecting." He rose slowly, drawing me into his arms. The kiss we shared then was deep, unguarded, years of restraint melting into devotion. His hands held me like something sacred, not fragile. Wanted, chosen. When we finally pulled apart, he rested his forehead against mine. "Whatever comes next, we face it together." I smiled, pressing my hand to his chest, then to my stomach. "We already are." Outside, the city pulsed, unaware that its most ruthless alpha had just rewritten the meaning of power. Not with violence, but with love fierce enough to terrify the world.